Hello, this is Bishop Manigault. Welcome to Bishop's Corner. Thank you for taking the time to stop by today. I'd like to continue the conversation we began on last time, where I was talking to you about some very startling statistics that happens when there are no fathers in the homes of our families. I want to impress upon you the ultimate importance that there is for men to be the husbands and the fathers that God has ordained for us to be. We are told in the scriptures directly and plainly to love our wives as Christ loved the church. We are told also to love our wives even as we love our own bodies. We are further told to not provoke our children, but to nurture and train them and to cherish our families. Until we do that, love, cherish, nurture, train, and give ourselves for the edification of our families, we as men will continue to fail in our God ordained purpose, and this terrible trend of the destruction of our home and families will continue unabated. I'd like to share with you an example from the scripture in 1 Samuel 27. In this lesson today, David is at a crossroads in his life. He and his men have come home and found out that the enemy has hijacked and ransacked their homes. The enemy has stolen everything that they had, including their wives and children. This event is the result of decisions that David made over the previous 14 months. In 1 Samuel 27, starting at verse 27, we read the following. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines. And Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel. So I shall escape out of his hand. And David arose, and he passed over with 600 men that were with him into Achish, the son of Maachos, the king of Gath. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his two wives, and Ananion, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. And it was Saul that, and it was told Saul, that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? Then Achish gave Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And at that time David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. So David, in an attempt to get out of away from Saul, who had been trying to kill him on multiple occasions, made the decisions to basically leave Israel and to go and to take up an allegiance with the Philistines, who were the arch enemy of the Israelite people. David had left the land of his birth. He had left the ordained purpose for his life, which was to actually be the king over Israel, and he went and dwelt in the land of the Philistines. And he did this for about 14 months, according to the text. The Philistines gave David the town of Ziklag to live with his men and their families. My brothers and sisters, you cannot defeat the enemy by ignoring what God has said for you to do. You cannot get the victory by running away from who you were created to be. You cannot be successful by compromising with the enemy. If you are a father, you need to stop running away from that fact. If you are a father, you need to come to grips with all that being a father means. You see, David meant well, but he didn't do well. He was trying to save his family by running directly into the enemy's camp. He tried to save his family by ignoring what God said he should do. He was disobedient to God and put his family and all that were with him at risk because of this. Furthermore, despite his best efforts, his family was hijacked and his home was ransacked by the same enemy. You see, my brothers, despite what we do, unless we allow the Lord to build a house, we labor in vain to build it. Our homes and our families are only secure if we men, husbands and fathers, obey God and live our lives according to his word. And so you see from the text, my brothers, it's not enough to mean well. You have to do well. It's not enough to mean right. You actually have to do right. David thought he had a good reason for being in Ziklag, but in reality, he had no business being there. And I want to speak to someone today who's still living in Ziklag. Get out of Ziklag. You have no business being there. Yes, you have your reasons why you're not married to the mother of your children, but you have no business being there. Yes, you have reasons why you can't get along with your three different baby mamas, but you have no business being there. And yes, there are reasons why you never see your child, never call your child, and have nothing to do with your child, but you have no business being there. Get out of Ziklag. When you're in Ziklag, you are out of the will of God. If you make a child and don't father that child, you are out of the will of God. There is no more dangerous place in the world to be than to be out of the will of God. David was worried about what Saul wanted to do to him. Saul, in this case, represents the system. And yes, it does have it in for you in some respects. The system would like nothing more than for you to be irrelevant to your family. But you have no business being irrelevant to your family. Instead of worrying about Saul, you need to be worried about God. You have no business ignoring what God's directive is for your life. Get out of Ziklag. If you are a father today, you must understand your decisions will affect the future of everyone that is connected to you. If you are a father today, your decisions will affect the future of everyone that is connected to you. You need to step up, you need to be a man, and you need to be a father. You need to step up, you need to handle your business, and your business is to handle God's business. Let me say that again. Your business is to handle God's business. It is not to lollygag in Ziklag. It's not to party and get high in Ziklag. It's not to sleep with as many women who will have you in Ziklag. You need to get out of Ziklag. Don't seek comfort in a place that the enemy has created for you. It's a trick and it is a trap. When David agreed to live in Ziklag, he was not thinking clearly. He has put his family in jeopardy, and he will pay dearly for that. At the end of chapter 27, David and his men who are in league with the Philistines, they fight against the Geshurites and the Jezreelites and the Amalekites. He takes their land and destroys all that they have. These nations were also the enemy of Israel. But what is even more significant about this battle is that after David defeats them, he takes these lands, the spoil of the battles, and gives them to the Philistines, who is also the enemy of Israel. David is being used by the enemy to fight against the will and the promises of God, and he doesn't apparently seem to know it or does not seem to care. When we do get to 1 Samuel chapter 30, the Philistines are now amassed to attack Israel. David wants to go with the Philistines to fight against his own people. The Philistines, however, don't trust him and refuse to fight with him. They send him home, yes, to Ziklag. When David and his men get home, they find out that while they were away, the Amalekites had come, had plundered their homes and had taken away their families. You see, my brothers, the enemy is on a campaign to destroy the family. Healthy God-honoring families are the bedrock of the society in general, and it is also the foundation of the church in particular. This is why you see so much pressure today to change the nature and the makeup of the family. While we are so busy fighting the system, we are so busy fighting each other, the enemy is quietly making off with our families. The men who have been with David all this time are extremely angry and extremely upset at this turn of events. They feel that David has let them down and he has in fact betrayed them. They even talk about stoning David for what has happened. David finds himself in a very precarious position. For those fathers who find themselves in a very precarious and difficult position, I don't want you to lose heart. You see, it doesn't matter how long or how often you have hung out in Ziklag, there is a remedy to the problem. David inquires of the Lord, what should he do regarding his desperate situation? My brothers, when all else fails, you could always call on God. When all else fails, Jesus never fails. You can turn to God when you can't turn to anyone else. You can trust God when you can't trust anyone else. So David calls on God for help, and God answers him very directly and very plainly. David tells God, I have lost all. I'm so lost, I don't even know what to do at this point. Shall I go after my family, or should I count this deal as done and count this fight as over? How many of you know that it ain't over, what, until God says it's over? It ain't over until God says it's so. God tells David, and I'm telling you, the plight of your family may look bleak right now, but it ain't over, not by a long shot. You see, God told David to get up from where he was, dry those tears, or man up, go after his family with everything that he had. He told him that he will recover all. So here's the good news, my brothers. It doesn't matter how long you have been in Ziklag. It doesn't matter how far the enemy has taken our families away. And for many of us, they are very far away. We must do what David did. We must rise and pursue the rescue of our family. And when we do, because it is God's ordained purpose, we will recover all. For we can do all things, what, through Christ that gives us the strength. Enough is enough. It's time to go get our stuff, and that stuff is our family. So this Father's Day, man up, get up. It's time to mount that rescue mission if you have to, with the help of the Lord. Let's go back and recover all that God has ordained for us. And I pray that this Father's Day that he would do such a work in your life that you will never, ever be the same. Well, my time is up. But I do thank you for yours. Thank you for stopping by. Until next time, God bless.